Hi, it's John from North Star Nursery, Garden and Home, your coastal gardener. So I have been getting a lot of phone calls lately about roses. So what I wanted to do was do a kind of a basic rose pruning and care video. And this can really apply to any time of year. For us here on the coast, roses grow very well. They do have some fungal issues and stuff like that. But their growth rates are really pretty good here. And that's because of our cool climates. And our colors are even more vibrant than in the hotter valley areas. So what I wanted to do, I had a customer call the other day asking, can I prune my rose now because I didn't get to it in the winter? And the answer is absolutely yes. You can prune your rose any time of year because they are very resilient and they, for the most part, bloom off of new wood. So what I wanted to do, and this seems kind of sacrilegious because this poor little baby is about to bud out, but I'm going to use this as a perfect example of what to do. So this one right now is actually sending out new shoots, which is very exciting. I want you to take note of this one down here that is below this one here, where my finger is. And it's below the graft union, which means it's coming from the rootstock. And we want to nick that right off. Just break it right off. Because that will actually zap energy from the main rose bush that has the flowering wood that you want. Now, it's going to look a little severe, but this is, again, you can go less severe or more severe. So this branch right here that is kind of coming up and going into the middle kind of the plant, I'm actually going to eliminate that. I know this is going to seem severe to you guys, but sometimes we have to be severe to get what we want. So then the idea, and this was taught to me by somebody a long time ago, the idea is that when you're done with your pruning, that you could set a bowl in the center of the rose bush and it would be supported by the canes. Now, clearly that's not doable right now because there's nothing happening here. But eventually, once this new growth starts to emerge, we might actually be able to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and prune to outside nodes. We want to encourage the growth to go outward. So none of that going down, and I know people are going to probably yell at me about this, none of that going down to the fifth leaf after the bloom. That's an old wives' tale. And honestly, you want to cut it down lower because you want there to be new growth. If you keep letting this kind of get tall, 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 and tall, your flowers will end up smaller. They won't be as vigorous because all of those nutrients have to travel all the way up and it has to sustain that whole structure. Whereas if you cut it down low, you're pushing new spikes and new blooms. I'm going to cut this one off and you'll see that there's new growth coming up this way, but there's also a new growth node coming inward. We're going to say no thank you and remove that. And on this guy, if you can't see, if there are no leaves, and I know it's hard to feel because there's thorns, but there is a leaf node right here. It's a little bump and there's one right here. We want to go to the outside node, so we're going to prune to there. Ouch. Yes, there are thorns. So this will, I'm going to eliminate this little guy right here. Again, just break it off. If you cut it off, sometimes it'll split and branch again. So it's best to break it off because that actually halts the regeneration a little bit better than just cutting it. So this is a bush rose, and we've now gotten it ready for the season ahead. Now, once you're done pruning, you want to make sure that you're fertilizing. Now, in the winter, you don't have to do as much fertilization, but starting in spring, you should probably start hitting it with some fertilizer to kind of get it moving in the direction you want it to go to. Now, some of those fertilizers could look like Rose and Flower Food by E.B. Stone, the all-purpose plant food, which is a balanced formula. And then because it's my pantry basics, the Sure Start. If you have nothing at all in your pantry and you have this, use it. This is a really great fertilizer. We use it on everything that we grow here. Also, if you are a fan of water-soluble fertilizers, the Maxi is great. This one is the Bloom formula, so it has a low nitrogen and a high phosphorus and a high potash. So this is going to push a lot of flower production for you. Let's talk about climbing roses. So you're going to really probably be a little upset by this because I'm going to prune off all the flowers. But sometimes we have to sacrifice things to teach. So there are all these buds that are coming off. And so climbing roses bloom off of an existing structure. That's very important to note. So climbing roses are much like the grapes in the vineyards. And each year they prune down to that horizontal line. And each year they produce new canes that then fruit. If you didn't have that horizontal or that structure, it wouldn't bloom as much or produce fruit. So this has an existing structure. And what I'm going to do is just do a down and dirty quick because I want to get to showing you the structure. Okay, so the structure is this main cane that's coming up. And what I've done in just my quick prune is I've actually left little canes with 1 or 2 nodes. Those canes are actually going to produce flowering spikes. And so we want to go through and do that throughout. Also, we want to make sure climbers are a little tricky because they usually kind of weave into each other a little bit. But what you want to do is open up as much air circulation as possible. The more air circulation you have, the less disease and insects you have. So on this one, because there's canes kind of pointing inward, I'm actually going to eliminate them. And I'm just going to prune to outside nodes that will give me the flower structure for the season ahead. Again, outside nodes is what we're hunting for. And then what I do in the process of doing this is I strip the leaves. I especially do this on my climber at home. I have this same climber at my house, and it goes up, it's probably about 20 feet now. It's a Sally Holmes, just like this, one of my favorites. And it blooms like crazy. And it has a great color. This little guy down here, we're just going to kind of take these little side shoots off because these 2 canes are trying to do something here. And we want to support them and take the energy and put it towards the main canes. Let's see. I think you get the gist. But when I'm done, this little rose is going to be naked as far as leaves. And that is the goal. If you're having problems with black spot or you're having problems with insects, sometimes it's easier to just go ahead and strip it, spray it. And when you spray, you want to spray once a week for 3 weeks. Very important. If you don't do that, you're not getting all of the stages, especially of the insects. The insects, I don't know if you guys know this, aphids are born pregnant, which is why the aphid bloom is always so big because they're ready to go the second they come out. So there is my Cecil Bruner climber. Not Cecil, sorry, Sally Holmes. Sorry, Sally. So that's that. When you're done, again, fertilizer would be great. As far as the pest management and disease management goes, there are a few options for you to choose from. If you want to just focus on the disease like black spot, powdery mildew, rust, this would be what you would use just for fungus. This is part of my pantry basics, and this is why. Neem oil actually takes care of disease and insects. So sometimes what I'll do in the beginning of the season, especially when we have those intermittent rains, and that's when the fungal stuff happens. So what you want to do is spray during the dry periods. Go ahead and spray your leaves if you've had problems in the past with rust or black spot or powdery mildew. So you can use that as a preventative. Also, you can use horticultural oil, and that will work as a fungicide and also as an insecticide. Again, spraying once a week for 3 weeks. Make sure that the plant is watered thoroughly 24 hours beforehand, because if you spray a dry plant, it's going to burn. Okay. The other thing I wanted to tell you, a lot of you guys really struggle with deer. And so my rose is green from about 2 feet all the way up to almost the 20-foot roof line. The deer come up to our doorway. They're not afraid of anything. So I spray this once a month. This is liquid fence. It does stink to you know what, but it doesn't smell after it dries, but the deer can smell it. And so this works really, really well to keep them off of the roses. What I do is I set a reminder on my phone, or if you're old school, you can make a note on your calendar to spray once a month during the spring and summer season. And that should keep your roses protected from the deer. Also, I wanted to mention, we have gotten in a hose end sprayer. And so if you have a lot of roses and you don't want to buy a little bottle of neem oil, you can get a large bottle of neem oil. These hose end sprayers have gotten very smart, which is really lovely. In the old days, you had to mix stuff. It was a whole thing. Nowadays, what you do is you literally pour the neem oil into this hopper and put the little lid on. And this one has everything in ounces. There's a little dial at the top. And so I've set it for the actual amount that you're supposed to dilute by, so read the directions. And then you hook it up to the hose and go ahead, and this has a little trigger thing, and it just sprays and it pulls the insecticide or fungicide as it goes at the exact dilution rate. Now, there are three settings on this. You'd want to use the spray setting. It kind of looks like a sprinkler, but a little bit lighter. The other thing I want to point out too, and I couldn't test the theory completely because I'd have to poke a hole in it, but they've now made these so that these bottles screw into this. So you don't even actually have to pour it into this. So this screws off. So this is meant for a smaller bottle, and this opening is meant for a larger bottle. So very, very convenient. I'm so happy they finally made it a little bit easier. The other thing to note is if you do pour something in here and you want to clean it out, like let's say you wanted to use a fertilizer spray after you did your neem oil spray. To clean this out, just use a tablespoon of baking soda, mix it in here, go ahead and run it through the system, dump this out, and you'll be ready to go. That neutralizes anything so that you're not kind of cross-contaminating stuff as far as spraying. All right. I think that is it. Hopefully this helped. Don't be afraid to prune. It's going to be okay. People are always afraid. So I hope you're having a great day. It's gorgeous out there. Don't forget to water. It's been really sunny. So some of our little plants are going, help. So we'll see you at the nursery.